Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the April 5th edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Shouts to those of you who are tuned in on Instagram Live. Shout out to Earl Lean. Shout out to Sharif. Shout out to those of you who are watching on Facebook Live. And as always, much love to those of you who are tuned in on YouTube. Definitely appreciate you. Make sure you hit that share button, that subscribe, and all of that fancy jazz that people be talking about in these internet streets. So listen, we're gonna get right into it, man. We got some good conversations. We're gonna be talking about the the unfortunate health status of Earl Simmons, also known as DMX. We're gonna talk about the Capitol Hill deaths, in particular Noah Green and mental health. And last but not least, I'm gonna do a little brief little rant on that old school versus battle that took place last night between Earth, Wind, and Fire and who I didn't recognize until about 2 hours into the show, Ron Isley and the Isley brothers. But first, we gonna have this conversation, man. I made a post today, and maybe I'll start talking about what happens to me out in these streets. Shout out to Sonya who's tuned in. So, I was in the gym today, right? And I'm getting my workout on, and it's a woman in there, and she has, she's blessed, right? She's well endowed, and everybody notices it. Everybody looks, right, because it's not hard to miss, right? Her derriere, and I saw these two brothers who noticed her, and one of them took his phone out and tried to ever so smoothly, right, do a little video like he was panning around the gym so he can get a video of her butt, presumably so he can put it in a group chat. That's typically what happens. I've been in group chats where that has taken place. And I was appalled, right? I was appalled. I don't want to act holier than thou. Have I done similar behavior previously? Yes, I have. But when you know better, you do better. When you recognize that that's a part of rape culture, this incognito, taking a picture of a woman, of a man, unbeknownst to them, sending it out, that's just nasty behavior. It's assaultive behavior. But that's all I could muster in that moment. I thought about, should I say something to this brother? Should I go out here and quote unquote protect women? We know that's a very real thing, and we know that it's uber necessary. However, and the reason why I say I shouldn't have posted is because the feedback that I got for people, and I'm sure they were well-meaning people, they operate from a space of Monday morning quarterbacking, where you can post something and you can reply and tell folk what they shoulda, coulda, woulda have done, but they aren't in that situation. And so with me sitting there, I thought about it. I was like, man, I should say something to these brothers. Then, honest to God, I thought about the murder rate in Philadelphia. And I'm not saying that these brothers would have murdered me, would have assaulted me in any way. They might have actually listened to what it is that I had to say, letting them know why that's a part of rape culture, why that type of behavior is problematic. They might have immediately went into their phone and deleted it. But we have to operate from worst case scenario spaces, especially when you're in you're thinking about intervening in situations. You have to put yourself first. And so, yes, in a perfect world, I'm Wolverine. I could put my cape on and go and say, hey, man, don't do that. Or say, hey, sis, they just took a video of your butt. But we don't live in that type of world. We see kids getting killed. And again, at times we have to take ourselves psychologically to the extreme situations, to extreme consequences and results for our actions. We have to do a cost-benefit analysis in these situations. And so for me, I sat there, what could take place? I ran through all of these scenarios. What if he denied it? What do I say then? What if he says, boy, why you minding my business? I got stuff for you waiting outside. Wait till you get outside. What if he didn't want to be confronted about that type of behavior? Then what? What if I went to the sis and I said, sis, yo, they taking a picture of your butt. I don't know if you want to put a little skirt, a jacket around it. I don't know what her response could be. What if she went and confronted him and said, listen, boy right there said y'all was recording my butt. Goes back to those same potential consequences. Right? These situations are nuanced. If that was my homie, 1,000% I would have said something. If I'm on the receiving end of that picture, of that video, dog, what is you doing? There's nothing cool about that. That's assaultive behavior. Clearly him and his man saw nothing wrong with it, right? I saw folks say, did you tell management? I did the best that I can do in that situation, given all of these possible worst case scenarios. There's no way in heck I'm entrusting the staff at LA Fitness to maintain some sort of anonymity for me in this situation. And so I have to speak in generalities. Listen, I don't know what it is with the recording rules are here, but I've seen some folk in here, doing some pretty nasty things. Recording people's bodies inconspicuously. Am I going to point them out? If it say they confront them, hey, Bull said, he said, we get right back to that worst case scenario, right? Listen, I got kids. I can't save everybody in every situation. I know we're operating in a different space in society where speaking up and speaking out is encouraged. It was also 500 murders in Philadelphia last year for stupid stuff like parking spaces. You smudged my Puma. And so you go and accuse somebody of assaultive behavior. What becomes of Phil? Y'all gonna put some money on my tombstone? That's gonna be pretty costly. I got a long last name. No, y'all gonna go back to y'all daily lives. And so I don't blame people for their response, right? Because again, when we get in these social media streets, so many people just operate from a lack of reality. And so kudos to the individual who would intervene. That's amazing. But in that situation like that, I just wanted all parties to get to their destination safely and keep it moving. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not protecting women. Prior to protecting women, I gotta protect Phil first. moving right along, man. We're gonna keep the party going. So, and if you on, I'm not on Zoom this time, but I guess you could try to zoom in if you want to come in and join 838-05-570-889. Those of you who are watching on Instagram, head on over to YouTube at PhilMSW. I usually have it in the little comment section, but again, you can head over there, right? Trying to do my little timestamps, man. It's difficult when you're trying to produce, you're trying to be the talent and all that jazz. Cause I don't watch none of this over again. Once I put it out in the atmosphere, I keep it moving. But I'm trying to be better at this being a creative thing. Y'all didn't ask for all that, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. And so listen, we're gonna get into this next conversation, which it hurts. Right? It hurts. His picture isn't coming up, and that's unfortunate. But DMX is in grave condition. He allegedly suffered an overdose. Yes, well, within the last 48 hours or so. We had a glimmer of hope from his ex-attorney who came out and said, listen, Dark Man X, he's breathing on his own now. But that was refuted by other reports that came out, and he said that he got bad information. And so we definitely send and I hate sending thoughts and prayers out to folk. I don't know, maybe in the metaphysical world, the thoughts and prayers actually, they do something, and that's what our hope is. But when I hear thoughts and prayers, I feel like it's to make the individual seem like they're doing something, that this is the best that they can do. And so we offer our this cliche phrase. We know that Earl Simmons, I don't even want to call him DMX, I want to call him Earl Simmons. Earl Simmons has been battling addiction for damn near his entire life. Even in the midst when he was going diamond with It's Dark and Hell is Hot at PhilMSW. Even when he was going platinum, double platinum, triple platinum. When he was the top selling artist at Def Jam. Most folk think it was Jay-Z. No, it was DMX. It was Earl Simmons. He was candid. He was open and honest about the trials and tribulations that he experienced in his life. The quote unquote demons that he was battling with Damien. We just watched the Verzuz, the Battle of the Dogs between he and Snoop. He had the gut, which was an amazing sign for those of you who work with people in substance abuse. When those individuals who are in recovery, they start to gain that weight, you look at it as a sign as them having made progress. But now here we are with Earl Simmons in grave condition. You know, we celebrate his music. I saw so many posts about get well DMX. I saw one nasty post that said, get well DMX, don't let this mess up your legacy. Like, this is a part of his legacy. Granted, I know we want to remember people the way that we want to remember them. But the same thing with Kobe Bryant. The same thing with anybody else who transitions into being an ancestor. We have to recognize who they are in totality. The healthy and the unhealthy. And so I was left wondering, do we love DMX? Or do we love Earl Simmons? Do we love this character that he portrays? Right? This image. Darkman X. I still don't understand why it's not Dogman X, but it's Darkman X. Who's caring about Earl Simmons? It's kind of selfish. Because we only know him through his music. We don't know the day-to-days. The ebbs and flows of life. The healthy choices that he made. The unhealthy choices. You see his wife showing all the people on their motorcycles. His ex-wife, rather. What she went through. We watched on some of them shows where they appeared when he was on Dr. Phil and all of these other places. But that's just a glimpse. And I feel like it's disingenuous to even say get well DMX. Because it seems like we're saying get well person who makes these records that we love. And just completely disregards the man. I don't know what the health outcome is. What it's going to be. You know, when I hear somebody's on life support, they're in grave condition. You know, I watch enough investigation discovery to know that people are often taken off life support once they realize that you know, their brain isn't responding, which one of the reports that I saw said. But I think it's important for us as quote unquote fans of creatives, of artists, to not put them in this box, right? To recognize the idea that we have of them is not who they are. In totality, it's only a small fraction. And that it's insensitive. It's unhealthy. Shoot, not even with just X, just people in general. And again, I granted, I get it. Human nature tells us to do these things, right? To celebrate individuals for what it is that we know them for. But again, that brings us this type of internal peace to show that we're doing something. But when he was out of sight, out of mind, were we caring about Earl Simmons? When he was getting high in Arizona? When he's acting erratic on the Breakfast Club, are we laughing? Are we saying, "Oh man, Earl DMX is wild"? Or are we not sharing this imagery? Are we not commenting on it? Because we recognize that this could potentially be misconstrued as encouraging the behavior. Or this doesn't help at all. And so, yeah, seeing the outpouring is dope. But also it makes us reflect. And we should reflect about how we're showing up. Just in the lives of people in general. And just like that, man, we're going to keep the party going. Right? And so that brings us to our next conversation. As I try to, because I think it's that we know what DMX looks like. Right? But I think it's important to bring this young brother's picture to the forefront. This is Noah Green. Noah Green, and I'm choosing my words carefully. I'm choosing my words carefully. Noah Green died by suicide this past weekend. He died by cop. Yes, and listen, I was just as shocked as you are. You might be. I'm just as shocked as you might be once you saw this picture of who the individual who crashed their car into the barrier at Capitol Hill and who this individual was. You couldn't have told me this wasn't a white man or a white woman who did this and who was killed. Similar to the DC snipers Lee Malvo and John Muhammad, I was taken aback when I found out it was a black man. I don't want to say we don't typically engage in these types of behaviors. However, we know what the statistics show when it comes to the mass murderers that and who's more likely to commit mass murders. White men. And so I saw this video, I saw this picture rather of Noah Green. And then I started reading about who he was and what he was experiencing during this time period. And it was alarming. See, what the media does is they have to paint you as a villain. Right? So the first thing that they say is that he's a supporter of Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan. That's the first line I saw in so many articles that I read regarding Noah Green. Why? Because we have to paint him as a domestic terrorist, even though they didn't use that terminology. We have to associate him with hate buzzwords like anti-Semitic. Right? Because we need a reason that he committed this act. And so if we can pull from the low-hanging fruit that is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, then that's what they're going to do. And see, it takes the critical thinker to look past that. To look past that cliche rhetoric that the media does. You have to have good and evil in the media. In the portrayal, we have this hero, this Capitol police officer who lost his life in the line of duty. Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. I'm not going to even say the Talib Kweli line that I typically say in situations like this. No. I'm not going to do it. You can Google it. And so we have this good guy, and so we need evil. We can't have good and somebody having a mental health episode, which clearly he was. Again, and this goes back to the initial conversation when I was talking about the situation within the gym. The nuance of conversation and nuance of situations. And why it's so important. Because if we had the nuances of this situation, we'd know that Noah Green had been deteriorating per his family psychologically. We'd know that he moved to Botswana within the past year and actually attempted to die by suicide by jumping in front of a car. Right? If we cared about nuances. After that incident, he moved to Virginia with his brother, who says, listen, he was plagued by mental health problems and possibly drugs. Nuance. In the family statement, they said something that was so alarming. They said that, we suspect that it's a result, that his decline in mental status could potentially be a result of head injuries suffered while playing football. He went from being a mild-mannered defensive back in college to now dying by cop some years later. On Thursday, his brother said he left the apartment and declared that he was ready to be homeless. I don't even know what that means. But what it's saying is somebody's actively experiencing a mental health episode and they need immediate psychological treatment. And so often, we recognize this within our families, within our friends, and we don't know what to do. Maybe if his brother or loved one would have made a phone call to mobile crisis in their county, maybe he would have had to have an assessment forthwith. That's fancy way for saying immediately. Maybe it wouldn't have been an episode at Capitol Hill for the media to then come out and say, well, he's a follower. He likes some of the things that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about. Hell, I like some of the stuff that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about. He's a great orator. Do I agree with everything? No. But again, good and evil, they have to be juxtaposed in these types of situations. It's very real. It's very real that if he would have potentially, if those individuals around him knew what to do, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't see the president of the United States lambasting individuals who are experiencing mental health episodes. But again, this is what America does. And I know y'all folk out there, y'all hate excuses when it comes to mass murders. You can't believe somebody's having a psychological breakdown, that they can be psychotic, that folk can be sociopaths when it comes to these types of situations, right? We think that they're mutually exclusive when both things can be true. Now, I know that one of the arguments is that when it's black folk, they're the murderers, the killers, and when it's white folk, it's mental health. That doesn't mean that when it's white folk, it's not mental health. That just means there needs to be more conversation when it comes to black folk engaging in the same behaviors. And so now the think pieces that I am seeing starting to come out in the days following this tragic incident is speaking to his mental health status. But the conversation that's not being had that I want to have briefly is, why the hell are y'all still letting y'all children play football? Why are you actively rooting for your child to possibly experience brain injury? Because that's what a concussion is. A concussion is a brain injury. Why are you actively rooting for your child, even not intentionally, but unintentionally, to end up like Junior Seau, who died by suicide, shooting himself in the chest because he wasn't his brain examined? Same thing with Andre Waters. former Philadelphia Eagle. Why are y'all still letting kids play this? For y'all enjoyment. For the life of me, I'll never understand. Never understand. And so, I know the white folk ain't gonna say it, but we never operate from the space of white folk. So we definitely send a rest in peace to Noah Green, who unfortunately was experiencing one of the worst times of his life and ended up dying as a result. God bless the dead. And last but not least, before I get out of here, right? I want to talk about this Verzuz that took place last night. I didn't watch the whole thing because I had a little situation take place, but I watched like the first hour and a half of it. And I'm gonna be honest, that might be one of the worst verses turned best verses ever. Like the first 20 minutes, I thought they was just gonna they was playing Spotify. They was gonna have DJ Nice, right? They was gonna have DJ Nice, and we know it's D Nice, but that's what Steve Harvey was calling him. They was gonna have him just play Spotify all night. But then Ernie broke out the guitar. Don Isley, I still don't believe that's Ron Isley. I feel like it was a doppelganger. Like he didn't want to show up. But then he started singing. And he started getting his little bag. And I was like, all right, that's Ronald. Earth, Wind, and Fire with the jams on jams on jams. I had a homie say that Earth, Wind, and Fire was overrated. That's when you send the child, please. Right? That's when you hit him with the child, please. You crazy. That was just amazing. I sent out a post about the differences in generational music. And I feel bad for this generation because they got Jacquees. And they got like singing Drake. You know what I'm saying? And somebody pointed out they got Ari Lennox and Sir and all these other people. Yeah, they cool. I don't know if they make timeless music. Even though I love that Ari Lennox album. Right? But just the music was amazing. My mama, she hit me up today because she wasn't answering her phone. So she watched it today and she texted me like, oh, I wish I had my afro and my pick. And I'm like, word, I can only imagine. Like, that's how I'm gonna feel if they do like a Usher, like a Drew Hill versus Boyz II Men. Because you know how I feel about Drew Hill waxing Jodeci. And I'm gonna look into both cameras. Drew Hill waxing Jodeci. Drew Hill waxing Jodeci. But it was just a fun time. I mean, outside of Steve Harvey and his toxic, Steve Harvey is the most toxic motherfucker in the world. And y'all know I hate the word toxic. But it's true. When he was talking about now how men dancing with men and back, like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, you already over talking them. Right? You talking too much. You're telling us every story in the world. And some of that was cool. Yeah, her is definitely dope. I don't listen to these new artists really like that. Like SZA, I bumped that album. But it was like, Steve Harvey, come on, man. Like, don't ruin the moment. Like, I'm surprised like a think piece ain't come out about how toxic Steve Harvey is when he made that comment about how men was trying to dance with women, not dance with each other. No, they were dancing with each other. Both heterosexual, homosexual, other identified, non-binary, all identities was jamming the Earth, Wind, and Fire and Ron Isley and the Isley brothers. Like Steve, like, what's the boy name? He prettied them up. Verdine. A thorough name. Verdine. You see him, he got the relaxer. What Wayman say? Peaches, don't forget the relaxer, girl. Rest in peace, Peaches too, man. Not Peaches. Wayman, who died after Low Down Dirty Shame. If you're not familiar with that, go watch Low Down Dirty Shame. But Verdine had the perm hair with it, and it flipped. He was just smooth, and we saw like they lays. We saw what y'all was wearing in the '70s. So you of all people can't do that, Steve. But I didn't let that take away from the experience. It was a dope experience, man. It was. I'm glad I watched. I don't know what the heck is going to happen with this escape, and I don't even know who they versus in. I'm still mad that Timberland and Swiss B sold it. You know what I mean? Because black folks stay selling their stuff, giving it to white folk. You could see how gentrified Verzuz was last night. Started on time, had a host. The sound was popping. That's what happened when you give stuff to white folk. And I didn't want that. It was just too perfect. It was too perfect. But no, overall it was good, man. I'm gonna sit here and go through this joints before I call it a day, because I don't see too many people commenting. So yeah, man. Listen, I'm gonna try to come back tomorrow and see what's going on. I gotta see what's going on with this DoorDash, cause something ain't right. So, but until tomorrow, peace.